8.7 Candidates Test. In the last lesson, we used the first derivative test to help us find maximum and minimum points. In this lesson, we will use the candidates test to figure out which points are the global maxima and minima. For example, if a graph goes like this, it goes down, and up again. We have this graph. This is a maxima, but not a local maxima, because this point is the highest point at a hill, but there are other points higher in the function. These 2 points are both minima in the graph I just sketched. The second one is the global minima because it's the lowest point everywhere, or the lowest point everywhere in our interval. The first one is just a local minima because it's not the lowest point everywhere. The candidates test just says to figure out which one is the global maxima, the highest point in our interval, or the global minima, the lowest point, we check the points from the first derivative test and the endpoints. So here's an example. In our last video, we analyzed the function g of x equals to 1/3 x cubed plus 4x squared plus 15x plus 1. We found that at x equals -5, there's a maximum, and at x equals -3, there is a minimum. That's the first derivative test. For the candidates test, we use those 2 points, x equals -5, -3, and we check our endpoints. If we want to find the global extrema in the open interval -6, 0, then we also have to check x equals -6 and x equals 0. So we plug in x into g of x. We find that when x is -5, g of x is -15.7. When x is -3, g of x is -17. When x is -6, g of x is -17 again. When x is 0, g of x is 0. Well, in these 4 points, the highest point is at x equals 0. And the lowest point, there's a tie, is at both -3 and at -6. So the global minima is at x equals -3 and -6 in this interval, and the global maximum is at x equals 0. Again, candidates test just says we check the points from the first derivative test and our endpoints, the 2 points given in the interval. One more example. Using the first derivative test, Antonio finds that f of x has a minima at x equals 3 and a maxima at x equals 6. He also calculated that f of 0 is 4, f of 3 is 3, f of 5 is 7, and f of 6 is 10. Where is the global maxima and minima in the interval 0, 5? The candidates test tells us to check all the extrema from the first derivative test and the endpoints. Our endpoints, so which ones do we have to check? Well, we have to check 0 and 5. Those are the endpoints. We also have to check our extrema from first derivative test. Here's the tricky part. X equals 3 is in our interval we have to check. But when we're checking all extrema from the first derivative test, it's just the ones in our interval. We don't care if it's outside the interval. And x equals 6 is not in 0, 5. So that means we don't check that. So we only look at our endpoints, 0 and 5, and the one minima we found from the first derivative, x equals 3. So looking at those 3 points, f of 0 is 4, f of 3 is 3, f of 5 is 7. The smallest one, global minima, is at x equals 3, and the global maxima is at x equals 5, because the largest point is x equals 5 of these 3. The lowest point is x equals 3. That's it.